Hey guys, a quick update to this video. After I made it, WWE effectively announced that Jerry the King Lawler's suspension has been lifted and he's effectively back in the WWE. I talk about it a little later in the video. I just wanted you guys to know so the video wasn't outdated. Here we go. What is going on, guys? My name is Tubby Emu. We're going to be covering a bunch of topics in this video. We're going to be covering returns, Jerry Lawler, and more. So let's dive right in. Last night in Winter Park, Florida, at NXT, Hideo Itami returned. He would team with TNT 61, and they would go on to defeat Samoa Joe, Tino Sabatelli, in a six-man tag. And to be honest with you, I am so happy we're starting to get some of these superstars back. Hideo Itami came into the WWE at a time when Finn was also picking up steam, and they both kind of had similar finishers, and there was a lot of questions whether one would change it up. We really hadn't got to see much of Hideo. I was there live in person when Hideo Itami at WrestleMania 31 in San Jose, when he hit the go to sleep and the crowd popped so hard. I was one of them. I could not believe he used the go to sleep, and just it blew me away, and I was so happy for that. So the fact that we're getting Hideo Itami back now, it's really looking good right before the draft. So all these superstars that I'm going to be talking about that are returning could play a big role in the draft, and whether or not we see them be drafted while they're injured. Right now, besides Hideo Itami, who is already back, he wrestled his first match. It'll be interesting to see if he possibly gets drafted, or if they keep him in NXT for a little bit longer, let some of the newer guys go up, and it'll be very interesting to see. Now, in addition to Hideo Itami, also in the ring is Randy Orton. The marketing director for the August 13th event in Hidalgo has the return of the Viper, Randy Orton. Now, Randy Orton was thought to not be 100%, and he may still be a little bit of ways from returning, and they thought he would be ready probably by June or July, and essentially he would come in and go to the Performance Center for a couple weeks, get some training back under his belt, and then we should see him returning. Now, I am excited for Randy Orton, and I'll say this. There may be some people that are kind of burned out on Randy Orton. Randy Orton gets the crowd behind him, and I cannot wait for some RKOs. I think especially with the younger talent, we're going to see some amazing RKO spots. We're going to see some amazing matches. I fully welcome Randy Orton back, and I'm super excited for it. So now, in addition to these two, we have more people that are making their returns. Neville is now being advertised for the tour, wrestling against Chris Jericho in New Zealand. And the big thing with this is Neville went out, obviously, for the tour in New Zealand and Australia. They're advertising him for August 10th to the 13th, roughly about the same time Randy Orton is scheduled to return. Would Neville get drafted? This is like my big question with all these superstars that are going to be returning post-draft. Would the GM see their value? And if they draft somebody, I think they could definitely turn it into a storyline. Like, yeah, he's hurt now, just like the WWE is. They could make this draft special really huge, that yes, he is injured, but they show the highlight package. He's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. We're drafting him. He fits his role. And even if he's injured, I definitely think it could fit that, because all sports drafts have that, where some of the top picks, 1 overall, 2 overall, are coming out of college being injured, so I'm perfectly fine with it. So those are 3 pretty big-name superstars in the WWE that are returning. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty excited for it. Now, if I was to be the GM, and I posted my fantasy draft, which you guys can go watch on my channel, and I covered basically who I would draft and where, that I would have Daniel Bryan as the general manager of SmackDown, and I would have Shane McMahon as the general manager of Raw, because while I like Stephanie McMahon as a GM when she's emasculating Dean Ambrose, at that point I'm like, just fucking stop. I get the point of a heel GM, but it's just not the same. She tries to be nice for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's a dick. So I don't want that to happen. Now, who would take him? Daniel Bryan knows the high flyers like Hideo Itami and Neville. Would he be more likely to take them? Would SmackDown be that more smart-friendly show? I would definitely keep those 2 guys on my roster. If, however, I was the GM, I would take all three and put them on SmackDown. I think Randy Orton could help put over some of the younger guys. Hideo style and Neville style would definitely flip that high flyer, get in the action, and maybe kind of drafting a little bit too much away from Raw, but all three of them I would like to see end up on SmackDown. Now moving on, the next big story that we're going to be talking about is Jerry the King Lawler. For those of you that don't know, Jerry the King Lawler was recently suspended for a domestic incident with his girlfriend. Now, people hear domestic incident, and they automatically think something else. Maybe somebody hit somebody. There was mass confusion around it. WWE did the right thing and instantly suspended him. Now, I know some people's thoughts on this, that they should have waited. WWE has a zero-tolerance policy, meaning that if the issue gets resolved, his suspension will be released. Well, in an update, basically what had happened, Jerry Lawler's girlfriend at the time, according to the court documents, was intoxicated. Whether she was trying to drive, Jerry the King Lawler was trying to stop her. She scratched his face. There was a groin kick. And ultimately, she was talking about possibly ending her life. And Jerry Lawler admits to getting a gun, possibly, not to necessarily do anything with it, but to kind of prove a point. He was trying to stop her from driving intoxicated. Now, it has been fully dropped. The charges have been dropped. Lawler's attorney had said this was a big misunderstanding and won't happen again, and we're very happy with this outcome. The incident happened at Lawler's home and claimed that Lawler held her against a kitchen counter during an argument. She said that he hit her on the left side of the head and pushed her against a stove. Then he retrieved an unloaded pistol and placed it on the counter and said, "Go ahead and kill yourself." Now, out of context, that may seem very wrong, but if she was willing to drive drunk, I don't want to speculate or say anything about this, but drunk driving kills other people. And it is very, very irresponsible. And Jerry the King Lawler probably was not in the right here to take out a gun and say this. But when you're trying to stop somebody that's intoxicated, they're very, very irrational. I've dealt with drunk people. Trying to get them home, trying to protect them is not an easy situation. I don't think it was handled to the best of his ability. But at the same time, it's now been dropped. According to the affidavit, Lawler said they argued over McBride lying about where she had been. He said she was intoxicated and tried to prevent her from leaving in her car. She then scratched the right side of his face, threw a candle at him, kicked him in the groin. Lawler alleged that she got the gun from the garage and threatened to kill herself. So there seems to be a little back and forth. The problem is, if she really was intoxicated, it makes things kind of hard to believe. Jerry could have done something. She could have done something. It is pretty much he said, she said at this point, but all we know is the case has been dropped. So would we see Jerry the King Lawler back right now? Would WWE lift the suspension, or would, because it's an indefinite suspension until the case gets basically fixed. There's been a lot of recent domestic incidences. Now, the reason that I bring up the domestic incidences is because a lot of people speculated also that Moose was possibly going to be coming to WWE. If you don't know who Moose is, Moose was a former NFL player for the Atlanta Falcons. He is now a wrestler. I'm digging his gimmick in ROH. He was working with Tanahashi as a tag team over in New Japan. And when they came over here to ROH, I really dig what Moose is doing. I think Moose would be a really good fit in the WWE. But according to Dave Meltzer, that even though he was WWE bound, because of the recent timing of all these domestic incidences, that they're going to hold off and that the door isn't necessarily closed. Now, Moose has often in the past said, it's not true unless Meltzer reports it, #not. So this could be right, this could be wrong. But from a PR standpoint, it would make sense, because Moose did have an incident with his soon-to-be wife at the time. Back when he was playing on the Falcons, he was suspended one game. So the WWE, from a PR standpoint, I think if anybody's trying to look to take down WWE or make a big deal out of things, that could be brought up, that he was thought to be a part of the September class. And so we'll see where things go from there. And that's where I wanted to bring up the draft and kind of segue from there. In returns to this, we talked about it a little bit earlier, who I would draft. Would I draft a superstar that's injured? And absolutely. I think, the fans may not look at it as kind of a big thing. Like, let's say for some reason somebody's a diehard SmackDown fan and they want superstars, and then they draft somebody that's injured, and then Raw obviously picks up somebody they wanted from on SmackDown. There could cause a little bit of tension there, but me personally, I'm all for drafting somebody that is not back yet. We saw Shinsuke Nakamura make his return to Japan. And if you have not seen that video on YouTube, I highly suggest you go check it out. Nakamura's reaction was insane. The crowd and just his charisma. His charisma is what every WWE superstar should look up to, is what every WWE superstar should do. This is what you should be if you are a professional wrestler. When it comes to charisma and personality, he oozes it. And I'm so glad that Nakamura is in the WWE. So essentially, he faced Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho put him over, eventually said he would become a WWE champion. So I would still, based right now on the amount of WWE fans that probably know Nakamura, I might stay away from that. But I would take, after watching that video and just knowing Nakamura, I would take Nakamura as a surprise #1 pick. But that'll wrap it up, guys. Let me know what you think of the returns. Would you draft somebody if you were the GM that was injured until they come back? Let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, we will see you all later.